So we are in 2350 class, looking at lab assignment 8, working with different layers in Photoshop. Let us go ahead and connect to the public folder on the server and navigate to lab materials and then the IGN 2350, and we should be looking at lab 8. I don't know. I'm gonna just name so you can see it. So this lab 8, my lab 8 is right on top because I guess I put a space in it. I didn't put the space. Change it. So go ahead and drag lab 8 straight to your desktop so you can have it. So once you have it, just copy all the files. I'm waiting for this to copy. Now you will see when, so I'm going to close this, and you can see on your desktop, right? I do have a lot of things on my desktop. So let's look at lab 8. Notice that I do two parts of lab 8 as A and B. Now I'll be grading the 8A, and Mike will be grading the 8B. So go ahead and go to 8A.
I don't have lab 8 showing up in mine.
Okay, so now with that, let us go ahead and move graffiti. Actually, no, street. And we can drag street JPEG straight to Photoshop. That's going to be our background layer. So go ahead and move it. It's right here. That's what happens when you have two screens. It shows up at different places. Okay. Now, so again, we're going to use this one as a base, but we will actually bring all the other ones in this order. So first is background, then bring the girl in rain. So what I'm going to do not drag the file straight to Photoshop, otherwise it will create a different thing for us. So make sure you first open up girl in the rain and you move it from that file directly. If you just move it straight to Photoshop, it's going to make it a smart object and it's going to be linking to that file, which we don't want right now. So go ahead and just open it up in Photoshop. Then select, you can pull it out from the tab. Then go ahead and select the move tool and then move it into the other one. The other ways to do so whichever, just don't drag it directly from the folder, okay? Drop it in there. Now name the layer, because we will name them. And this one will be girl in the rain. Okay? Don't save. So you need to keep dropping. Next one will be the girl. Actually, we're going to do next one. It's going to be the girl in the field. So just drag it to Photoshop again. And this is what you're going to do for all of them. So notice what I'm doing. Finally, you can see. So drag it out. Then you're going to get your move tool and then move it to this document. And make sure you position it so it fits within your paper when you do so. Okay. So if you need to minimize the image, minimize it so you can see it. Now we will rename this one girl in the field. I'll put D in there. I guess in the rain too. Right, and we have, with that selected, the last layer girl in the field. One more is graffiti. So go ahead and grab the graffiti, open it up in Photoshop, pull out the tab, and then put it back into the last document. So we have several files now, and again, needs to fit the page. And name it graffiti. Okay. So you should have 4 different layers. So the first thing you're going to be looking at once you bring it in is looking at some options we have within our layers. And if you notice here, you have what kind of layer it is and options you have, but right below this, you have what it's called blending mode for the layer. You've seen the blending mode before in Illustrator. And what it does, blending mode will look at the color values of the image on top with the one below and kind of blend them together, if that makes sense. So if you click on it, you will see that there's different categories. So the first, normal dissolve, it just kind of does a little dissolution around the image. Then those, specifically if it starts with darken, you're gonna know they're gonna be darkening your image. So if you click darken, notice what happens, right? And all of those, that's what they behave as. They'll be darkening the top image. Now if you're looking at lightening the image, again look at the first option, lighten. That's going to lighten the image as the name suggests, right? And then you have other options like soft light, hard light, which gives you a little bit more blend options. Now the one I want you to choose is screen. Okay, screen. Now you already noticed when we did that option, if you notice your reference image that the girl is actually not visible fully, like the graffiti part, the drawings are still on her, so we will have to make a few changes to it. So one thing I want you to do once you have the screen selected, we're actually going to for now discard the graffiti, so go ahead and hide it by clicking on the hide button here. And go ahead and navigate to the girl in the field. We did different things with the girl in the field. Now, remember last time we worked with different selections? There's one selection we haven't worked yet in Illustrator. We haven't worked in Photoshop. We worked in Illustrator, which is the pen tool. Pen tool gives you more precise selection where you can do the dropouts much easier. So with that, we will be choosing the pen tool. And actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom out from this. I'll do a different zoom to the image and go ahead and click on your tools, select your pen tool, and you've done this before in Illustrator. You'll be tracing around the girl. Now, with the tracing, you want to be very precise. Don't get close. And one thing, you see all this hair? You can just ignore it, just go down this way. Okay, so go ahead and start drawing your selection. So I'm going to start on mine. And go around. Don't worry, there is a direct selection tool. If you mess up, you can always add points, you can remove points, you can select with the direct selection tool. So don't worry about being all the way precise right now. Just try to do as best job as you can. Like, you can always undo, which Command D is the easiest thing to do. Z. Command Z. And you do need to zoom in. Actually, in a minute, I'm going to zoom in even more when I finish to make sure my edges are correct as well. Good selection matters a lot in Photoshop, because you need to make sure you're removing the image from its background. And this image is definitely doesn't have any straight points, so all of your points should be, so there's no cast points, they're all rounded points. So you need to be dragging out. But this part is straight, I guess. Here, the bottom. So notice here is her blouse too on the other left side. So we need to select it. And I'm going to zoom out and move this. Now that's, when you have to do detail work, you do want to zoom in more. Now in the beginning, I usually don't zoom in as close because then I have to move my page So I just try to do as good job in the beginning and then get close to it and retouch anything that requires retouching. Right, so I'm almost... on her hair. She has a lot of folds in the hair, so try to go around it as much as you can. Alright, I finished tracing around mine. So now I'm going to zoom into the details and see whatever I messed up. This is the time to look at it and see if I forgot a point like here. I can add another point. So you can click on there and then so you can add the point. Then right below it is path selection and direct selection tools you can use. Just make sure you go all the way around and you close it like you did in Illustrator. Otherwise, what we want to do won't work. So I told you, you will not go, the pen tool will not go away. So I'm just retouching it. I see where points need to be added to make it a smoother transition. Be sure to zoom in as close as possible, otherwise it will not work as well. So we're working now with the vector pack, as I call it. I usually would put a point every time you see a little fold or change in direction, especially if it's opposing directions on both. Okay, that's good. So try to be as precise as you can. And this may actually really help you with your projects as well, when you have to work on removing the person from the background. Okay. So now, the way it's saved is actually not saved as a selection. It actually will save your kind of working path. It's a path that you have drawn. So if you're looking at, next to your layers, you have channels and paths. Notice it's actually saying it's a work path. Now, one thing about working path, if you create a path, you need to know that if you don't save your path, if you use the pen tool again or another thing, in paths it will go away. But if you want this selection to be permanent, and you can always reuse it in the future, you don't have to redraw it twice, you will save it. So what we're going to do now is we will save that selection. So click on the side of the drop-down menu and do Save Path and name it Girl 1. That way we can always load it if we need it, okay? So it's going to be permanent thing. Notice with your selections, once you do it, it's over, right? With this, it's going to stay and you don't have to worry about losing it. Now, it's still not a selection, it's a path. So next thing we have to do is load our selection. So go ahead and click on the side. And then I want you to load Make Selection. And do 1 point radius, 1 pixel. And just my default. What is feather? What does it do? It kind of makes it softer on the outside. So that way it's not a really rough selection. You can do a bit more than 1 point, but by default I usually do 1. So it's gonna soften the line for you. If you do just 0 or none, it's just gonna be a very hard line. Make sense? So just smooths it out. I go between 1 to 5 depending on it, so I'm just gonna do 1. Do okay? Now notice what happened. It became a selection. And that selection, you can always do this with the path. So now, let's navigate to our layers. And what we're going to do, we're going to duplicate this selection to new layer only. So we're going to drop only her into new layer. You can even do duplicate, but really what you can do is Command J on your keyboard. It's going to paste it in a new layer. So if I hide the other layer, you notice that we did a drop down of her. But we forgot one step. What is that we forgot to do to her? Refine the edges. It's still not a bad job because we did a little feather on it, but we didn't refine it. You think you can do it now? If I want to refine the edge like we did last time? Well, select. Says you cannot select anything. So, what do you think we should have done before we moved it? We should have not pasted it yet. So undo. But that's very important for you to know because you're going to do this at home and you forget to refine it. So when you got to that point, you're like, oh, I forgot to refine my edge. You want to undo so you don't paste it yet. You have the selection still loaded. Now, you can actually, if you did paste a new layer and you forgot, you don't want to undo, you can load the selection again. Now, go ahead and click on Select. And it's going to tell you Refine Edge. Select Refine Edge. Select Smart Radius. Now what I want you to see with that, if I move my cursor a lot, notice what happens. I get all the details in the hair, right? Which is maybe was what you want, but look at the bottom and see if it's not picking up everything that you don't want to see. So you always want to move around your selection. So my radius is definitely too much. I want to kind of have it so I actually can see. I don't want to pick up anything extra. So I'm looking around 4 or 5 points or pixels radius. And it's going to show a little bit of the hair, but it's not picking up anything on the outside. Always pay attention to the little detail. And then do, okay. After that, we're going to move on to the next step.